Welcome to the 2012 Associated Students Incorporated Presidential Interviews, sponsored by the Collegian. I'm Tony Petersen, the opinion editor of the Collegian. Fresno State students will be able to vote on Tuesday, March 27, Wednesday, March 28, and Thursday, March 29 to elect a student body president and other student officers. ASI represents more than 21,500 students at Fresno State. The Collegian is proud to present these interviews featuring the three candidates vying for the office of ASI President in 2012. The three candidates running are Arthur Montejano, Jose Nava, and Daniel J. Harrison. The first candidate is Arthur Montejano. Mr. Montejano received his bachelor's degree in history from Fresno State in 2011 and is currently pursuing a master's degree in kinesiology with an emphasis in sports psychology. Mr. Montejano, first question. Why do you think you are the best candidate for ASI President?
Well, Tony, thank you first for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you, and thank you to all the people in the audience for coming out, and those of you watching back at your computer screens for taking the time to be interested in your student government. In brief, what makes me the best candidate is the depth and breadth of my experience. I have served as a Vice President of Judicial Affairs for Merced College, and I also represented at 10 colleges as the Senator for Region 5 for the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, which I believe makes me the only candidate who can say that they have experience representing students at a local level as well as at a state level. In addition, while here at Fresno State, I've made my career working to empower students and their organizations as a member of the WAG PAC, where I helped acclimate students to new surroundings every year, as well as a peer consultant with the Leadership Council, where I work directly with students and organizations, and as club sports supervisor for Fresno State, where I've worked to enhance the opportunity for students to live a very healthy, very active lifestyle as student athletes in a collegiate setting. And I believe that because I've been able to touch on every aspect of student life, that allows me to have a very different insight from the other candidates. And it also allows me to point to a record that has consistently worked to empower students to make the most of their experiences here in college. And that's, I think, the key towards any form of student government. How well do you empower your students? And I think that my record speaks for itself.
The state legislative analyst says the California budget deficit is estimated to be $13 billion. And if Governor Brown's proposed tax increases are not passed, CSU funds will be cut yet again. If this happens, Fresno State President John Welty says that tuition would rise, classes would be cut, and teachers would be laid off. Just this week, it was announced that enrollment for spring 2013 would freeze. If elected president, what could you do to help alleviate students' financial troubles?
Well, Tony, I think that part of it is that we have to, again, put those tools in students' hands that allow them to have better access to these resources. I can say that coming into Fresno State, I wasn't as well aware of the financial opportunities available to me. And even when I transitioned to being a graduate student, I didn't have that awareness. And so a crucial role that ASI needs to play a bigger part in is in introducing students to those resources and putting them in their hands, saying this is where you can go. ASI needs to be a bigger resource in that sense. In addition, we need to come together not just from ASI's point of view, but we need to embrace students as partners in helping identify these resources, because sometimes they're not as apparent as they should be. For example, student assistantships or graduate assistantships might not be as well advertised as they should. And by embracing students, faculty, and staff as partners in identifying those solutions, we can identify them and make them better well known.
What would you do about the proposed $34 parking permit increase, and what realistically can the ASI president do about it?
Well, Tony, quite frankly, it's still a proposed fee. So it has to go through a fee advisory committee before it is moved on to Dr. Welty for his approval. The first thing that we need to answer is whether or not that fee is representative of what it's going to cost to build and maintain the new parking structure. Well, the new parking lot, 600 new spaces. And then we need to say, okay, well, can we come together again to find a better solution? How can we identify whether or not all those spots are going to be for students, whom the fee will affect greatly. And from there, we can go back and negotiate with administration. I do not support a parking fee increase that does not have student input, plain and simple. We need to have a voice in that, and we need, because we are the ones who will ultimately share the burden of funding this new project, we need to determine now, is that fee appropriate? If it's not, then how can we address the need for more parking by working with faculty and staff and with student input specifically? How can we find a common ground that is fair to everybody and then come back and revisit this issue later? Because we voted on a 900 spot parking garage. That's not going to happen. So we need to be part of the negotiations, and if elected, I would try and find my way to go and insert myself into those talks and have that discussion. Is it fair to students? Where can we find the common ground that addresses the need for more parking without placing an undue burden on students? And how can we revisit this issue later on when we have better information in terms of how do we continue to address and maintain parking on this campus?
Now, how do you think you would get students involved? Is that by a non-binding vote by the students that might affect President Welty's decision? Mm-hmm. Or is there another idea you have on that?
Well, I think that one of the ways that we can offer an opportunity for student development is we can ask our own students who are in engineering, who are in planning, and say, well, what do you guys think? Does this sound like a feasible plan? In addition, ASI does sit on that board, so we need to encourage ASI to reach out to students. They need to do that. They need to come to us instead of waiting for us to go to them so that they can get our input and then effectively advocate for us on their behalf.
Okay. Mr. Montejano, to encourage students to become involved in public advocacy, you have proposed, and this is a direct quote, a student general assembly to be held once a semester that would provide a forum for students to learn about issues relevant to them and discuss solutions. Mm-hmm. How would you go about getting this program started, and is it realistic to expect many students to take advantage of such a program?
The General Assembly would essentially start like this.
Okay.
You would assign each senator an area or a topic that is of interest to them so that they feel like they are bought into making a difference in their students' lives. They would then not necessarily facilitate, but they would help develop a workshop that would address that issue as it pertains to students. We would also reach out to student organizations and say to them, hey, what are some things that you think you can share with us? Because that's the key. If we want to find solutions to the problems that are facing us in the future, we have to start coming together and we have to start doing it better. So I think that yes, when you give students an opportunity to voice their opinion and to feel like they are meaningful participants in the dialogue, they will jump at it. I think that a lot of the protests that have been going on demonstrate that there is a need for that outlet and for us to be able to have those discussions in an open forum. Right now, again, ASI waits for students to come to them. By doing this, we are going to them and saying, hey, come have this discussion with us. And I think that students would respond to that. And it starts first with making senators partners in developing the program and embracing student organizations as meaningful participants in that as well. And from there, you can build a foundation where we can have that discourse.
Now, you are a grad student at Fresno State. Mm-hmm. How would you balance your schoolwork and extracurricular activities with your ASI duties?
That's a great question. I was able to graduate from college while participating in intercollegiate athletics, student organizations, holding at least one job a semester to help myself get through, and being a full-time student. That gave me the time management skills I needed to already achieve success as a graduate student. I'm proud to say that I had a 3.67 in my first semester while holding 2 jobs, as well as maintaining an active role in student life on campus. So I think that my experience has given me the tools that I need to manage my time effectively and address the duties that I have as ASI president and still maintain my own academic standards.
Now, if elected ASI president, what would be the first thing you'd want to accomplish, the first thing on your agenda?
Well, the first thing on my agenda would be establishing relationships with the Senate. Again, when you embrace people and you bring them in, you make it easier for us to all function more effectively. From there, we could outline a shared vision or they could identify with my vision if they so choose. But by establishing that relationship, we've set ourselves up for success. And that would boil down to how well I can establish a relationship with those senators, embracing them as partners, and then outlining the goals that we have for the coming year. If we're all on the same page and we have the same goals, then we could do some truly incredible things, some truly wonderful things for the student body. We could really serve them in a way that I think is reflective of their needs and what they want to see their ASI do. But first, you have to have a president who's willing to reach across the aisle and say, I want to work with you. We are partners in this. And so that would be my primary goal after elected.
Mr. Montejano, thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you so much for your time, Tony. Thank you.
The second candidate is Jose Nava. Unfortunately, he declined his invitation to be interviewed. We will move forward to the next candidate, Daniel J. Harrison. Mr. Harrison is a junior, double majoring in economics and political science. He is currently the executive director of the Fresno State College Republicans. So, Mr. Harrison, first question. Why do you think you are the best candidate for ASI president?
Well, I'm the candidate with the ideas. I'm the only candidate proposing a decrease in the ASI fee. I'm proposing a 25% decrease. Also, an idea that I've been campaigning on has been picked up by one of my opponents to create a student general assembly. The main difference is my opponent has proposed a meeting once per semester. I have proposed meeting once a month. What a student general assembly can do is it's giving the student clubs the opportunity to go to ASI, go to the USU. I'd like to bring in all the senators, executives from ASI, bring in the board from the USU so that they can hear the concerns not once a semester, but they can hear the concerns once a month so that the concerns and issues that need to be addressed can be addressed immediately, not, in November or April. And so I currently sit on the ASI Finance Committee, and I think being ASI president, you have to know the ins and outs of ASI, you have to know what ASI can do, and I think I'm the best candidate who fits all those criteria.
Okay, the state legislative analyst says that the California budget deficit is estimated to be $13 billion. And if Governor Brown's proposed tax increases are not passed, CSU funds would be cut yet again. If this happens, Fresno State President John Welty says that tuition would rise, classes would be cut, and teachers would be laid off. Just this week, it was announced that enrollment for spring 2013 would freeze. If elected ASI president, what could you do to help alleviate students' financial troubles?
Well, going back to my first point is I'm the only candidate proposing a decrease in the ASI fee. ASI year after year goes to the executives, goes to Welty, Olivaro, and all the others, and says, decrease our tuition, increase efficiency on campus. But it's a cliched argument. If ASI is able to say, you know what, we have decreased the fee and we have made our organization and our level of government on campus more efficient, follow our example, I think that argument has a lot more merit. And so it's, realistically speaking, it's not something that's going to happen right away. It's not going to be something that can be fixed before fall. But if elected, I fully intend on starting in June 1st, the first day that I take the role of the leadership position, and working over summer with the Senate, with the other executives, so that we can make a recommendation that has merit so that for spring semester, there can be a real dip in the financial burdens that the students are facing.
Okay, Mr. Harrison, as you said tonight, if elected, you would decrease the ASI fee, which is currently $34.50 for each student, by 25%. And you say you would compensate for the revenue loss to the ASI budget by cutting the portion of the revenue that goes into the ASI reserves. Now, why do you think this is a good plan for ASI? And just continue to expand upon what you've been saying. And would the benefits of a lower fee outweigh the costs of ASI not having as much money in reserves?
Currently, ASI has more money in reserves than it would take for a full year's operations. I am 100% supportive of people saving, levels of government saving for the future, but in the current economic crisis and with the amount of money that the ASI has in reserves, I think it's a little unnecessary to continue to take more than is necessary from students. By decreasing the fee, we can keep operations the same. But even though the real dollar amount of the decrease that I'm proposing is, about $10, a little less than $10 per year, it's the principle of the matter. If going back to what I said earlier, if we're able to go to the leadership and say, you know what, it wasn't much, but it was something. Can you do the same? And we can ask them for a proportional representation. So we can go to them and say, you know what, we cut it 25%. Even though it was $7, $8, it was 25%. We can go to them and say, where can you find 25%? Heck, where can you find 10%? And so I think that by doing that, it doesn't directly alleviate some of the financial burdens, but what it can do is it can propel other functions on campus and other fees into that kind of position that would alleviate.
And should your plan to cut this fee by 25% happen, how would ASI account for an unforeseen expense that would force it to drain much of its reserves?
Well, I mean, that's what reserves are for. If something unforeseen, heaven forbid, happen where we would need to dip into those reserves, then in future years we could say, you know what, having reserves really helped. Let's start putting more money in that and slowly, gradually get back to that level. Obviously, that would be unforeseen, and no one wishes for that kind of thing. So as it stands right now, ASI has done its job preparing for something to happen, and the worst that can happen, I mean, I can't even really say, but stuff that I can imagine wouldn't even cover everything that reserves could cover. So I'm not too concerned with the fact that we have that solid reserves. If something happens and we need to use it, that's what they're there for.
Great. And what would you do about the proposed $34 parking permit increase? And what realistically can the ASI president do about it?
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate event. ASI can't do much directly. However, going back to what I said earlier of starting work on day one, what we can do is we can make a recommendation to the university auxiliary, the university board, and say, you know what, for spring semester, this would be better. They have financial obligations. I understand that. They want to pave the parking lot. They want to make it better quality. That's great. However, you can't just push it all on the students at once before it's even begun construction. So what we need to do is we need to make a recommendation to the university so that they can alleviate that, make it more gradual. On another note, this is a real opportunity to have a prospect of Fresno State be in the statewide media. Fresno State, of all the CSUs, has the lowest parking permit fee. I mean, Cal Poly, it's about $150 per quarter. We're at about $68 a semester. If we can keep our fees as the cheapest parking permit fees, that's going to resonate in the minds of high school students considering what college to go to. It may not seem like a lot, but it will seem like enough to push people towards Fresno State. And that's what we need. We need to promote Fresno State across the state.
Mr. Harrison, if elected, what would be the first thing you'd want to accomplish, the first thing on your agenda as ASI president?
First thing to do would be to restructure the Senate so that they can function more efficiently. Currently, senators are asked to do just a few hours a month. I think they need to be doing the same amount that they're doing per month per week. And so that would be the first thing. And what we can do from there is work, because if they're working more often, we can get these kind of things done where we can write these comprehensive recommendations for the university board regarding the parking permit fee increase. We can make decisions about the ASI fee decrease. We can make these decisions, but we can't do that as it is right now because the Senate needs to be restructured. And so that would be the first thing that I would do, kind of reorganize things so that ASI can function more efficiently.
So how specifically would you restructure the Senate? Would it only go to with the senators and increasing the amount of time they work in the week? Would that be the main part of your plan? And also, how would you entice people to become senators when it's not a paid position, and then you're asking them to work more during the week?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It would start there with the Senate. Okay. I believe the amount that they have to do right now is 8 hours a month. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would like to see them do 8 to 10 hours per week. And what we can do from that, I would love to be enticing people to get involved on campus, especially in ASI. I think we need to bring back the staff parking permits for ASI senators. I think, having the priority registration is a good incentive for some students. They serve on campus, they get priority registration. For some students, that means a lot because classes are hard to get into. At other CSU campuses, for instance, the ASI president at one of the schools down south makes $30 grand a year. I am not opposed to paying senators $500 a month or $500 a semester for a scholarship. They're serving the students. But we need to incorporate that with the increase of participation by the Senate. 8 hours a month for 4 months, 32 hours for $500 doesn't seem reasonable. But really getting involved and being more active on campus, I think there should be incentives.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And if you would like to vote for any of these candidates, the polls are open Tuesday, March 27, Wednesday, March 28, and Thursday, March 29. All students will receive an email with instructions on how to cast your vote. On behalf of the candidates, ASI, the Collegian, and our production crew, I'm Tony Petersen, and we thank you for watching the 2012 Associated Students Incorporated Presidential Interviews.